greatly like to introduce our panel discussion of, that's not what I wanted to do, of our MFLA toys. They are going to be moderated in a discussion by Ms. Debbie Espitia, a longtime board member of MFLA. And our final session today promises to be an honest conversation about our current challenges that we are facing as educators and how our three former MFLA toys, our Teacher of the Year, are meeting those challenges and addressing the needs of their learners. As I said, MFLA board member and second vice president Debbie Espitia will be leading this discussion for us. And with that, I am now going to stop sharing my screen and allow Debbie to take over and lead us in this wonderful panel discussion.
Thank you so much. So let me see if I can do this. Okay, so when it shows, you're going to have to tell me whether you see the presenter notes or the PowerPoint.
We see the presenter notes and the PowerPoint.
How about now?
Now we just have the PowerPoint.
Yay, thank you. Well, as Emily said, I'm Debbie Espitia. I'm a retired teacher of Spanish and also a former coordinator of World Languages and ESOL in Maryland. I now live in Delaware, and I serve on the boards of MFLA, of DECTFL, and also of NECTFL, our regional organization. And with me today are three of our former World Language Teachers of the Year. So we have Jodie Hogan, who is our 2013 toy, and then Amber Sheffler, who is the 2017 toy, and then Serena Keeney-Horsch is our 2020 toy. And in just a few minutes, they're going to tell you a little bit more about themselves. But first, I just want to reiterate some of the housekeeping items that Emily shared, and also give you an overview of our session today. So we've organized the questions around three areas. So first, we'll be talking about setting up for success. And then we're going to look at adjusting expectations. And then the last segment, we'll look at building on the positive. And so as a reminder, after each of those three segments, we ask that you post questions in the chat box, and we'll address those questions at those intervals. And also, if you hear something fantastic, amazing, wonderful, please share it with your professional learning network on Twitter or any other social media platforms. And don't forget to use the hashtag MFLAMD20 and also tag MFLAMD. And so now, let me take this opportunity to have our three panelists tell you a little bit about themselves. So Jodie, would you start us off, please?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Jodie Hogan. I am a Spanish instructor at Anne Arundel Community College. I also teach the Methods of Teaching World Languages course there for the Teach Institute, which has been really cool. I am very excited to be here with you all today. I've been a member of the MFLA community for many, many years. I served on the board for several years, and now I'm just a member, but I always love coming to the conferences and kind of keeping my roots in this organization in order to have the opportunity to collaborate with so many amazing professionals. So thank you so much for having me.
Amber.
Hi, my name is Amber Sheffler. Sorry, my voice, I was telling them earlier, my voice is a little wonky today just because I think kids are coming back to school and I'm starting to get my annual cold, I think. But I teach high school at South Hagerstown High School in Washington County Public Schools. I teach the advanced levels of Spanish, typically 3, 4, and AP. This year I'm teaching Spanish 1 and a Spanish 2 class. So it's very interesting doing all broads of all kinds of things. I have been a member of MFLA for the last, I think maybe 6 or 7 years. This is the first year that I've been sitting and serving on the board, which has been an eye-opening experience. I love it. I was Teacher of the Year for the state in 2017, and I've been presenting all over the state as well. I presented in, I was supposed to present down in Skolt at our Southern Conference, but COVID happened. So other than that, I've been presenting at my county and in Pennsylvania as well. So very excited to be here today.
And Serena.
Hi, I'm Serena Keeney-Horsch, and I work in Montgomery County Public Schools. I have taught in dual language classrooms on and off since 1995. Currently, I am our dual language instructional coach / coordinator and focus teacher at our school. But the years before that position, I taught in first grade and in kindergarten as a Spanish teacher. I am excited about the direction that MFLA is taking to include more and more and more age groups of students that are learning in different languages, and that is my passion and my love. So I am so excited to be a part of that, and I'm a very new member to the board. So it's exciting for me to see all the things that are going on from the inside. And I'm really happy to be here with all of you guys today. So please don't forget to post your questions in the chat, and we will definitely get to them and address them. And so just to keep in mind, we have different grade levels here. And so if you have questions about elementary, I'm happy to answer those. And Amber obviously is high school, and Jodie is in college. That's super exciting too. So let's get this started. Yay!
Well, thank you, Serena. I was going to say exactly that I wanted to make sure people noted that we're ranging those different levels from, K-16. And so I'd also like the three of you to just very briefly tell us what sort of virtual or hybrid model are you in? So Serena, what's your model for the elementary grades?
In Montgomery County Public Schools, currently we are all online. So all grade levels, all school experiences, from pre-K through PEP classes, up through high school, everyone is online. And there's talk of a potential hybrid model, but there have been no decisions made yet.
Okay. And Amber, for Washington County?
So we started out the year digitally. I think it was September, maybe 16th or 18th, sometime in the middle of September, we started phasing students back in. And we just did another wave of students. So we are slowly trickling students back into our buildings. So it's interesting because I'm teaching roomies and I'm teaching Zoomies at the same time. And so it's an interesting mix at the moment.
Well, and I'm sure that's a perspective people are going to want to hear about. So
yeah, definitely.
Thank you. And then Jodie, at the community college level, what are you all doing?
So we are all online as well. And so I'm currently teaching, I'm teaching Spanish 111, 2 sections synchronously, a Spanish civilization and culture course synchronously where we meet on Zoom, like we would at the regular, during regular class hours. And then I'm teaching a Spanish 111 asynchronously. And then we'll be teaching the methods course like this on Zoom in the second 8 weeks of the semester. So we are also all virtual. Mm-hmm.
And has it been decided for you all that you'll be virtual for the entire academic year, or are they going to make a different decision maybe for second semester?
So for the second semester, the plan as of right now is that some classes will go back in varying capacities. So it just depends on what classes you're teaching. As far as I know, at the exact moment today, the language department will be staying online through the whole school year. Now that may change, but that's just as of right now.
And I know very often at the university level, they have to make those decisions so much earlier, just in terms of course catalogs and student schedules and all. So good to know. Well, let's get started then with our line of questioning. And we're going to start with a conversation about setting up for success. And this has several different areas of focus. And so first we'd like to start by talking about what have you learned from the remote teaching that you did in the spring, and what worked well for you that you're continuing? Amber, maybe you'd like to start us off with that.
Sure. For me, I learned that there's a lot of different things that I learned in the spring. Springtime was just, it was like crisis teaching. It was just like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Okay, let me just try to get some stuff done. I'm a very organized and meticulous person when it comes to how my lessons are structured, how my routine is, and all of those things. And sometimes I get overwhelmed when I'm not meeting my own standards. So I finally learned that, I can't always stick to my schedule or my routine. Sometimes I just have to let things go. And so I've learned in the spring that, I can't control everything, but I am a reflective person. I've been able to adjust the things that I've done and keep on going. I'm really focusing this year on what it is that my students need from me. And then how do I get that to them? My kids, the beauty of what I do and who I am is I get a chance to have my students year after year after year after year. So they know me, they know how I work. And so especially for my upper level students, like my fours or my fives, they know what to expect from me. And sometimes they take the class because they love the language. Sometimes they take the class because they love me. Sometimes they take the class for a mixed match of all of those things. So I'm trying to continue those things that worked well in the spring. My students really loved how I created my digital learning plans. Everything in one spot, everything is organized, everything was hyperlinked, bookmarked. And I'm really focusing on trying to not train them so much, but understand few platforms as possible, get really good at that before I throw something new at them. I've noticed that I sometimes was throwing too much at them and they were like, whoa, what is happening, Senora? So some of my success that I've had is establishing routines. My other success is just, it is what it is. I think I said this in one of our board meetings one day. It was just like, I have to forgive myself. Sometimes I fail forward, and learn from it. And my kids are very flexible and very graceful as well, because they'll be like, oh, Senora, well, that didn't work out. That's okay. We'll try something else tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds good. And so they've been very forgiving. But the relationship that I have with my students and the reciprocity between us has been very successful, because I've been able to build rapport with them, even digitally, even with the kids that I've never met before. I've been able to build rapport with my kids digitally, and then they're still very graceful.
And we'll talk a little bit more about how you all have been able to build those relationships and that rapport. But something you said with routines makes me think too, especially at the elementary level, and with those kindergartners and first graders, so much are all these series of routines. And so, Serena, what did you all learn from the spring that you're continuing now in this new school year?
Well, that's a fantastic question, especially talking about the routines part. That is an area that is so important for our little guys and for them to anticipate what is going to happen next so that we can lower their affective filter so they're not like, oh, what's going to happen? I don't know. And especially since we are in a 50-50 dual language program. So half of their instruction is in English and the other half is in Spanish. And it's not, I'm going to say one sentence in English and then one sentence in Spanish. It means that 50% of their day is in one language and then maybe 50% in the afternoon is in the other language. So with that said, we have a lot of students that are being exposed continually for half their day in a language that isn't a language they're familiar with. If you think about our pre-K students that may have never heard Spanish at all, and they're now in pre-K learning Spanish part of the time and in kindergarten. So the routines are very important. Having, when the kids enter the classroom and they have music playing, so that gives them a chance to dance and to the music, or maybe to chat with their friends so that they can feel like they're in sort of a school environment with the other kids that are in the same class as them. And then moving into the slides that the teachers present that has the order of what's going to happen first and second. And it's using a lot of those comprehensible input strategies that so many of us use. And a lot that is so important, especially for our little guys, because many of them in pre-K and kindergarten, they don't know how to read yet. So they're still learning how to read. So we have to have the images up there so they know what is happening and what's coming next. Another thing that we do with our students is we color code things by language. So I don't know if you can see here, we use orange for Spanish and blue for English. And so to give clues to our student to know what language they're starting in, there might be a blue background, or there might be an orange background, or the teachers might pull up their sticks, or I have glasses also that we use. So I say, oh, ¿en qué idioma estoy hablando ahora? ¿Qué vamos a estudiar ahora? And they see that I have my orange glasses on or my blue glasses. Or I also always have a puppet. Now this is Frida. And I have my Ricky here who speaks English to the kids. So the kids are very aware of, when Ricky comes out, something might be said to them in English, which is not very often in my class because I speak Spanish, the target language. Usually about 99.9% of the time. And then we have Frida, who likes to share cultural tidbits and things like that. But some of those things are very important, as well as having images to show the kids what the Zoom expectations are, so that, like today, everyone should have their camera off except for our presenters, and everyone should have their microphone off except for the people who are talking. And it really helps our students, and they get used to hearing those routine type words. So we have our question words on cards so the kids can see, they're asking about an object, or they're asking about why, so that we have a lot of these things right here in our hands, accessible to hold up and to show our students, or on the slides so that our kids have access to that. So routines are very, very important for our little guys.
Perfect. And Jodie, I'm going to make an assumption that probably doesn't change once you get to, the college and university level. And I don't know if you taught remotely before all of this hit, but what did you learn, and what are you continuing to use because it works really well?
I had never taught remotely before all of this hit. So I was in the same kind of place that a lot of people were in here. So I would say one of the biggest things that I learned in the spring, and that I've continued into the fall, is that we can do a lot of the same things in the virtual format that we do in the classroom. So in the classroom, even though it's college, I include a lot of movement, and we've continued to do that in the virtual format. It looks different, but we've continued to do some of it. I do a lot of cooperative and communication-based activities, and we've continued to do that in the virtual format. And for me, in the beginning, in the spring, when this all went down, kind of like Amber said, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I had a small instructional identity crisis because my students knew me as one way, as one type of person and teacher, and how I presented. And here we are going into these Zoom meetings, which for us in the spring were optional if we met synchronously. Now they're not. And I was thinking they're going to expect the same thing. And how am I going to challenge myself to at least let them know that I'm trying to engage them in different ways? And so, I mean, we did different things. I have my silverware here. We did an activity called Silverware Share, where, I assigned a category to each of the pieces of silverware. I was just trying to think, laying in bed one night thinking, how can I engage them in a way that I know everyone's participating, right? So, if the answer is to use Serena's example, Frida, if I'm describing something that Frida did or showing a work that she did, that's the cuchillo, right? And if it's something that Picasso did, then that's the tenedor. And if it's something that Dalí did, then that's the cuchara. Just to give an example, we didn't do that activity, but I really challenged myself and started to kind of get that like new teacher high. I've been teaching for 20 years. So that comes a little less frequently than it had when I first started teaching, and getting excited about being able to bring something that they don't expect. When I say, go get some silverware, and they're thinking, what on earth is she going to have to do with it? So I've enjoyed that. At the same time, I've learned that I may be super excited about something that I created and spend, time making it. And it may not be received as well or the same way it would have been in the face-to-face classroom. And just really kind of throwing my hands up, surrendering to that and saying, well, but like Amber said, I at least tried, right? And building that kind of respect between myself and my students, that they know I'm trying to engage them, right? Sometimes it's going to work. Sometimes it's going to fall flat on its face. And I recognize it. And we move on, right? So I recognize the wins and celebrate those wins, sometimes with my students, sometimes with myself when I'm talking to my husband after, and just really trying to focus on that, because it can be easy to be like, well, it's not the same. I would love to go back to the classroom, and it's not, but that doesn't mean that, I have to just default straight to lecture, right? So that would be one of the biggest things. The other is to piggyback on what Amber and Serena said, that routine is going to look a little bit different for our college students than in Serena's classroom, but they still appreciate it, right? So if I have PowerPoints, which I do every class, just to kind of guide, not to lecture from, but to guide, those are up on Canvas before class. They know they're up there. They know they can access them. If there's a game or something we do in class, I send that to them out on Canvas. So they know kind of the script of what to expect in my class. And I think they appreciate that.
Nice. One of the things that you mentioned, I think is so important to reiterate you said a lot of important things there. I'm sure the comments are churning, but the fact that students recognize that effort and that you all are putting into making these great learning experiences for the students. And so if something doesn't pan out the way, you've anticipated, I keep hearing over and over just how appreciative the students are and how non-judgmental and how supportive they are of you all. And so that's, of course, students would be like that. One of the things that's, I think, a huge challenge, as many of you may know, I have been working remotely for the last 3.5 years. And it's hard to set boundaries. And so how are you setting boundaries within, your environment? Because for the most part, I think you're at home. Amber's now back in the classroom, but she still has kinds of levels of boundaries that she has to work with. And so it's not just your environment either, but in terms of interfacing with the students. So how has that been? Who'd like to start us off?
Anne, the spring was very challenging because we didn't take attendance necessarily. Attendance wasn't super required. You still had to do the work, but it wasn't required. So I was getting text messages and emails and everything from all hours of the night, mostly between like 3 p.m. and 3 a.m. was when I was getting messages. And because the kids were up all night and they were sleeping during the day. And so I adjusted to that. And so I'm responding to emails at midnight. And this fall, I was like, that cannot happen. Like, I have to set these boundaries where, I am not an 8 to 4 kind of teacher. That's not who I am. I work when I need to work, as long as I need to work. But I've been really trying to set boundaries this year. Now, of course, school is required and we take attendance and all of that stuff. So those kinds of things are definitely getting better. But I'm trying to stop and say, okay, now I need to go have a balance in my life. So I'm trying to set those boundaries for myself, saying, okay, you need to take a break, get off the computer. I look at the screen all day long. Like, these are not prescription glasses. These are blue blockers because I get headaches and my eyes get fatigued so quickly. And so I'm trying to really make sure that I'm setting my boundaries. I have my standards for my students, and I say, this is how it works. They all know my routine when it comes to homework, classwork, how things work. I address email issues during the day. Sometimes I'll answer things in the evening, but I'm really trying to stick to, this is my schedule, these are my office hours, come see me, and things like that. And so I've been really trying to stick to those boundaries, and my students are starting to respect that because they're realizing, okay, yeah, she can't work all day and night long too. So
Nice. Serena.
So when I think of the boundaries, I think of in classroom boundaries. We, of course, are having challenges with students turning in material or turning in assignments. It's really challenging for our little guys to figure out how to do that, to make a recording of themselves and send it in, or if their parents take a picture with their phone and send it in, or if they can do something on Cami. Those things are really hard. And so we have to be creative while setting those boundaries. We don't want to receive, of course, texts at 3 a.m. with a picture of a student's assignment, like Amber was talking about. And luckily, that doesn't happen that often. We do find that a lot of the students are turning things in 3-4 days later, a week later than they were due. And, we're really, for the most part, saying it's okay, because at least they're figuring out how to get it to us, because there's so many different levels of tech literacy with our students and their families. So much of the tech literacy is in English. And so many of my students are speakers of other languages. And so they may be able to read and write in their home language, but to have to figure out so many of the tech words to gain access to the technology is a challenge. So we have found that them taking pictures and sending them at appropriate times of the day is a way for them to get some of the materials turned into us. Also, setting boundaries for myself, that's always been a challenge, right? For all of us teachers, it's a challenge, because people think that our job is, like 9 to 4 o'clock and we get our summers off. And well, there was no summer off. Like, the emails that came in were crazy. Every day there would be a new decision. So for myself, I would have to say, okay, I'm going to answer emails until this time at night, and I'm not going to answer emails from Friday at this time until Monday morning at this time, so that I could create space for myself. And I've had a number of teachers say, well, how can you not check your emails on the weekend? And I said, I just have to do it. And I have to be steadfast about it, because if I check one email, then I check 15 emails. There's no way to just check one. And so it's, I've had to set those boundaries so that my family has my time and attention too. And that's something that gives me joy as well. So it's a challenge, but I agree that it's something that we all need to do, so that we, our eyes can rest and our brains can rest and our hearts can rest from all that's going on around us.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jodie? Especially, with home, you have a little one, and then with your students. And
yes, and so I do a lot of the same things that Amber and Serena do. I would say one of the biggest things that I try to do as far as setting boundaries with the students is being organized and letting them know what is expected with due dates. which is always important. And at the college, we're able to be a little bit more concrete in when things are due, very far in advance, but also setting boundaries as far as accepting late work is concerned. I feel like so much of my time in front of the screen. I don't mind being in front of the screen when I am teaching and engaging or talking with a student. For me, my struggle is all of the grading involved in this virtual format where there's no paper or stack of papers sitting around reminding me that I need to grade them. And so really just setting boundaries as far as that is concerned, having a kind of a late work policy, and really sticking to that so that I'm not grading, things for 2 weeks because students are turning them in kind of when they feel like it. And right. So I think the other thing is in the spring, I was thinking if I were Pablo Picasso, I would be painting all blue. It was a very stressful time for me because I was working 7 days a week, literally every single day. And that was because I was, like Debbie mentioned, I was helping my daughter with school, and also trying to do 8 hours of work in a 4-hour period of time every day. And so I really, this fall, have really tried very hard not to work on the weekends. That doesn't mean I don't grade a little on the weekends. I do. I kind of have to in order to keep up and keep my own sanity as far as trying to get stuff back to the students in the time that I promised that I'll have them back. But that's my biggest thing, is trying not to work a lot on the weekends. And that does include, like Amber and Serena mentioned, answering emails in the weekend. So I would say that's the biggest thing, and leaving my computer in where I am now and on our 3rd floor, and just not even going there. So that's what I'm trying to do. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, that sounds to me like anyone who knows me knows that that's like probably the most difficult thing to try to do. This next question is extremely important. What are you doing for yourself to avoid burnout and to recharge your batteries? Now, you talked about some of the things in terms of setting boundaries, but what kind of, I guess they call it now, like self-care are you doing?
I can start. So I try to exercise every morning. I have a Peloton, so I was fortunate to not have to go to a gym or anything when we were shut down. And I really had just made that no matter what, I got up in the morning and I exercise, and that's how I start almost most days. And I also really try to be focused on spending quality time with my family. Because for me, when I start to feel like that is lacking, then I start to get stressed, which then is going to lead to the burnout, right? Because I'm not spending time with my family or quality time to my standards, then I start to kind of maybe resent all of the work that I'm doing, which is going to lead to burnout. So I try not to let that happen, and just really be purposeful about spending quality time with my family. And then, of course, exercising every day is really what I've been trying to do.
So go ahead, Amber, sorry.
Doesn't matter. You go ahead, Serena. You're fine.
Okay, I was going to say as well that I feel that same thing, that when I start to feel that burnout, I start to feel that resentment for all the work that I have to do, even though I'm the one who's choosing the times that I'm doing that work. So I have tried to take walks with my family. I've tried to go to bed earlier than I normally do. I tend to be a night owl. And lately I found that I'm getting more headaches and my eyes are really sore. And so when I get a good night's sleep, that really helps me a lot. I try to keep water next to me all the time because that just makes me feel better. Also, I have tried to make a concerted effort to leave my phone, leave all the things, and my husband and I will drive and get coffee through the drive-through, or spend some time at we have a cidery near us, and go there and just sit with the dogs and my kids and play games outside that has nothing to do with tech. Because it's so easy. Our phone, so much is on our phone now. We can get our email, we would take pictures, we, listen to music, we listen to our books, we could look up whatever. And then I think, oh, I'm attached everywhere I go. So I try to find places and things that I can do that I don't need my technology. And it has taken some creativity because before COVID, I was attached at the hip to my phone and technology. So it's definitely been something to learn through. But I love that you're using the Peloton, Jodie. We got an exercise bike. I just need to get myself on there. So I think you're inspiring me to do that. Thank you.
Amber, what about you?
So, personally, I try to do yoga almost every day. And now that now I'm back in the classroom teaching. I'm not teaching from home anymore. I actually have and I only have a few students. I have a few roomies. So at the end of the day, when everything is done, I have a little yoga spot in my classroom, and I just kind of walk away and I do a half hour of yoga at least every day. That's one thing. Like I said about the glasses, the blue blockers are another thing that I'm doing personally. I'm trying to take some me time, trying to do things with my friends and my family, trying to spend some quality time with them. Professionally though, because a lot of, my burnout obviously comes from professionally. So I'm really trying to do a lot. I'm trying to do a lot more with my colleagues. I have PLTs in my building. I love bouncing ideas off of my colleagues in my district and in my building, not even just like other language teachers, just other teachers. I have some really, really great friendships in my building. And so I'm like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what I want to do. I'm trying not to bog myself down with technology. I'm not trying to figure everything out myself. I'm asking for help. I'm asking for guidance, because a lot of times before I would be trying to figure that out all by myself because I don't want anybody to realize that I can't do something. So I'm trying to relinquish that of myself and just say, you know what, it's going to be easier if I just ask for help. And so I've been doing that a lot more often. And I have some fantastic colleagues that I've met through my AP reading that I've been sharing resources with and sharing things with from all over this beautiful country. So just trying to rely on others and not just, rely on myself all the time.
That's an excellent perspective. Really, really good. So Amy and Adriana, we're going to take maybe one or two questions that were particular to the themes that we talked about in this segment. Do you have any for us?
Yes. I will start with first one. It comes from Dina DeLuca, and she says, for a newbie to Maryland and the organization. Oh, wait, this one, we already answered that one. I'm so sorry.
Good.
I apologize. From Caroline Schlegel, you all speak about routines. Do you have a specific opening and closure, or is it, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm trying to, this thing is. I
think I did see her question, like she was talking more about like routine.
Yeah.
So I do have some things that I do every day. As soon as the kids pop into class, I have a slide. It's, in a normal setting, we would always have a warm up. We'd have a cool down, those kinds of things. So I typically have my warm up. My students do, I always say, okay, guys, un chat público or un chat privado, whatever it is that I want them to do, because I don't want them to show all the answers or whatever if they do it to everyone. So I have them do a flood the chat almost every single day as they're coming into class, because we have to do our check-ins, we have to do attendance. And so that check-in, as Caroline knows, because she works in my same county, that check-in is a beast. And it takes some time to get them all, click this, click this, click this. So as they're coming in and I can see them flooding the chat, that's how, I tell my kids too, I'm like, I swear I'm playing Where's Waldo every single day with the students on my screen. Is so-and-so here, I'm looking. And so that screen is how I start the class. And then throughout the class, as Jodie said, she has a PowerPoint, I have a PowerPoint, and it just guides the lesson. I often have images on there so they know exactly what we're doing. If there's a guy going like this, they know we're doing an audio activity. So there's always images and things on there that I have for everyone that they're like, ooh, that's what she means. This was what this happens. This is what she means when she puts this up. And so they are already forewarned, they already know exactly what's going on, and they have learned those routines as we have come through the class. So, and then we usually have some sort of cool down. We have a 10-minute transition between classes. So I tell my kids, I'm like, okay, if you have any questions, hang out here. If not, peace out, have a great day. And so having those things that happen daily, every day. But the first thing I do is flood the chat with whatever my questions for the day are that are pointed to the lesson, and then go right into curriculum.
I am going to interrupt at this moment because we still have 2 more categories to talk about. So if, we'll save some of those other questions for the end. So Amy and Adriana, don't lose any of those that you did have. But I would like to go on to our next segment that is talking about how you've had to maybe adjust some of your expectations. And so the first category is what's a personal expectation that you've adjusted? Who'd like to start? I'll let you all jump in.
I think I mentioned it, but my personal expectation is that I can't be in control of everything. Everything is not going to be smooth sailing like it usually was in the classroom. And so I have allowed myself to just be like, take a breath. My one colleague and I were talking the other day, we have to have our SLOs in. We're still required to do SLOs, and we're feeling like we have to have data for data's sake. And so we're like, okay, what do we do about that? And how, and so I'm talking to my principal, and I was like, this is, we want to have everything with integrity, but it's so easy for students to use Google Translate. And then like, well, what are we thinking about? What is this data going to show? And looking at our rubric. So we're trying to figure out what is it that we're doing and what do we want them to accomplish. And we're really just trying to adjust to, and I hate the new normal, but just trying to adjust to that new normal and saying that, things are okay if they just don't go your way. And so we're just trying to figure it out. And that is hard for me. That is hard for me as a control freak to let things go. And so that's one personal expectation that I've had to adjust as I go, and just be like, okay, tomorrow's another day.
Mm-hmm. And I think I heard you all say that or something similar through some of those other questions. So I wonder then, what about expectations of or for your students?
I love that question, because that has been an outside the box thinking moment. Usually we have paper and pencil or pens, lots of different materials to get in the kids' hands, the manipulatives to get in the kids' hands to be able to count and recreate stories and all of those fun things that we do in all our classrooms, right? I was going to say elementary, but I know that you guys are doing all of those fun, active movement activities as well. So that part has been really like a lot of brain work and collaboration has gone into how do we expect our kids to show us what they know in a way that we don't have but this little box right here. And if they're tech savvy enough to be able to fill out some of the forms online and send them to us, that's great. But what if they don't have all of that knowledge? So we did a lot of brainstorming together, a lot of work together, and talked about, like Carolyn and Aubrey did, we do polls, we do use chats. There is Jamboard. I don't know if you guys have heard of Jamboard. You probably have. It is terrific because you can have them work on it in groups. You can have those can be saved and then shared later on. One question can be posed, multiple questions can be posed, and it gives kids an opportunity to respond. One person was mentioning to me the other day that, well, they can't do this talk to a partner. And I said, wait a second. We did that during the summer. I taught summer school this summer, and it was actually the kids who said, well, could I just ask that person below me a question? And I thought, well, why not? And so that student modeled to the rest of the kids in the group how they could have a talk to a partner. So they talked to that friend and asked that friend the question. That friend answered the question and then asked another person. So they all got to see this modeling of talk and turn to a partner. So that was very exciting. As far as writing goes, we spent a lot of time using whiteboards. And this is what I was going to show before, that at the end of our routine, at the end of our day, we write down the kids that participated, and they get a big star. And the kids love that because it improves engagement. They want to see their name on a whiteboard that has their name on it, and at a big star. So maybe one day it's a happy face, one day it's, Frida says, look at all these people that participated. I know that probably doesn't work in college, but it does work with the little guys in elementary school. So as far as expectations go, we expect the same thing from our students, right? To be engaged, to participate, to show us what they're learning, to speak, to read, to listen, to write. And we just have to figure out ways to do that in other ways that fit into our little box right here. And so it's exciting to hear all the ideas that you all are sharing. And it's exciting when we collaborate in my school, and I just come up with lists of how to do that.
Cool. Jodie, anything you want to add to that?
So yeah, I would say that my expectations are pretty similar in the virtual format as they are in the face-to-face, and in that my expectation is that students engage in what we're doing, but out of respect for them, I make it possible for that to happen, right? So that's my role. My role is to try to make it easy for them to engage. And so by creating activities and doing different things. So I say that my expectation is pretty much the same, but I would add that we need to sprinkle on, or I need to sprinkle on, flexibility. So I do have to be flexible in the community college, and of course, probably in every college, right? So we have students coming from different home scenarios, right? We have students who have families, we have students who, have their children on virtual learning right next to them, or their grandchildren. And so just really being flexible to an extent. And so I would say that, but my expectations are pretty much the same. Have been trying with my whole heart and soul not to sacrifice, the communication-based activities, and really just keeping that bar where I think it should be, no matter what format we're in. And I just really feel like students rise to the bar that is set for them. And so as long as I'm giving them ways to be able to engage, for the most part, they really have been doing that, which has been great.
What's so exciting for me to hear from the three of you is, or it's rather what I didn't hear from the three of you, that I have heard maybe from teachers across the country, were their worry about where students were in terms of the content that they quote unquote missed out on from the spring. And so none of you talked about, oh, my students will be behind, so I have to, lower my expectations in terms of what students can do and what, they know. And, it was none of that. It was all about how to help them be engaged in moving forward, which is really exciting. But that does also lead us into the next question about, have you had, or to what extent have you had to adjust your expectations in terms of curriculum?
I'll start this one. I was really, curriculum is definitely, super important, but at the same time, in my world, in my head, and maybe it's not very popular to say, it's not the end all be all kind of thing. Like, I was really worried about, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to cover the curriculum? What's going on? My French teacher and I were talking the other day, and she said, I'm already a week behind. And I was like, that's okay. Like, what I'm really worrying about, what I'm really focusing on is communication. All the great thing is about what I do, like I said, is I get to have my kids year after year after year. So I'm not overly stressed about curriculum. It's important and I'm teaching it, but at the same time, I'm really setting my kids up for communication. Can they communicate with each other? Can they write it? Can they read it? Can they listen to it? Can they speak it? Can they take those discrepant skills and put them together, weaving them together? That's what I'm really focusing on. And I think I saw somebody in the chat say something about, digital teaching is much slower than regular teaching. But at the same time, if they're communicating and they're getting what it is that I'm teaching them, vocabulary that I might miss, well, they'll pick it up again next year. They'll pick it up somewhere. It's really okay. Curriculum is important and I'm teaching it, but at the same time, I'm setting my kids up to be successful for communication. If they can be dropped off in the middle of some country and figure their way out of there, that's what I'm setting my kids up for. And so if they can communicate with the skills that I am giving them or I am helping them acquire and build, then I am completely and totally content.
Serena or Jodie, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I will say that we have 2 new curriculums this year at our school online. And it's a real challenge for our teachers because the curriculums are created to fit into a regular school day, the amount of time you would have in a regular school day. And our time has been squished. So it has been a real challenge. And there are a lot of discussions with the teachers about how to fit everything in. And luckily, our county has talked about priority standards and choosing the priority standards and sticking to those priority standards. I will say that, oops, oh no, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, it disappeared for a minute. I've been having some issues with tech, surprise, surprise. And so it disappeared. I thought it was it kicked me out. So it is a challenge. I would like to sugarcoat this one and say, oh, we're doing great. We're working really hard and our teachers are focused very hard on making sure our students get what they need and they're trying to stick to those priority standards. It's a lot. And I feel for our teachers right now because they are trying really hard to stick to the brand new curriculum and squeeze it down so they can fit it into the 90 minutes they have, even though the curriculum is created for 2 hours to 2.5 hours. So I take my hat off to them and encourage them all the time to find ways that we can cover things, doubly cover them. If we have social studies that happens to be covered in our literacy block, then we try to cover some of our social studies standards along with that. So this is an area of challenge for us in Montgomery County, and especially in our dual language programs right now.
Okay, I think in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over the next Q&A that we had, and we'll save those for that, 15-minute bridge we have. And instead, I'd like us to move then into talking about what are things we want to make sure we hold on to, because we just talked about expectations and maybe about some things that we do have to let go of. But what's one thing that you want to make sure you hold on to during this school year? And it can be in any realm, it can be curriculum, it can be different strategies you use, different aspects of your program or of your life. What's one thing you want to be sure to hold on to? Jodie, would you like to start?
Sure. I would say the biggest thing, and I've touched on this in one of the other questions, is engagement. I am not surrendering engagement. I will surrender to the fact that it's not going to be the same, right? But I just will not let go of the engagement aspect. I'm trying so hard to engage, even if it's something as simple as We played a game to do the multiples of 10, and I played music from different decades. So they had to type in the chat that the song was from los 50, from the 50s, right? Or los 60, the 60s, or los 70, the 70s. When I paused the song, everyone hit enter and it popped up into the chat. I could see, right? So something as simple as that to engage every student at the same time as a whole class. So I am just going to hold on with my whole might and my strength to engagement.
Cool.
I agree. Jodie taught me a lot. I attended one of her kinesthetic sessions years ago, and at MFLA conference. And I am a very kinesthetic teacher. Everything I do is learn by doing. And so going into this era of having them in their rooms, I'm like, what is happening? What can I do? I need to get them up. I need to get them moving. And my Spanish ones the other day were just sitting there like a bunch of lumps. And I was like, okay. I was like, guys, I need energy. To give energy, you got to get energy. I was like, come on. So I made them stand up and we played Simon Says. Stand up in the middle of their bedrooms. We played Simon Says. My Spanish threes, they were just kind of like, it was one Monday morning, they were all sitting like this. And I was like, you know what? I was like, we can't run around the classroom, but you all can run around your bedrooms. And they're like, what? I was like, get up. And so I was like, I yelled, it was called run and grab is what I called it. So I was like, the first person that can find una camisa roja, and they had to go run and find a red shirt and bring it to the screen. And just a way to get them engaged in my lessons. I'm also not willing to let go of my target language as much as, I'm really, really, really trying to stick into my target language, and I'm using more images than I ever have to help them understand what it is that I'm talking about. I've been trying a ton of new activities, new platforms. Jodie and I were talking about one that I had success with last week, and I was like, oh my gosh, this worked. Oh my gosh. And, I get really excited about it. So the kids get really excited about it, but it was hard for me to explain it to my Spanish threes in the target language. So finally, after like 5 minutes of explaining, I was like, okay, I just have to break into English to get through the activity. And I forgave myself for it. The activity went fine. They still learned what they were supposed to learn from it. But engagement, I'm still not ready to give up movement in my classroom. So however I can incorporate this movement thing and the games and all of the fun stuff that I do, I'm not ready to give it up. So I'm really, I'm scouring Twitter all the time looking for ideas. I am talking to my colleagues near and far. What are you doing? How did you do this? I want to do this. And so I'm not ready to give up the engagement, the competition, the competitive thing that I'm a competitive person. I loved my kids to be. So those are some things that I'm really, really holding on to, communicating with my students in the target language, having them communicate back with me that way, engagement and movement. Those are some of the things that I'm not willing to give up during this digital teaching stuff.
Perfect.
Well, what I'm not willing to give up is kids wanting to come to school. I want them to want to come to school and to love learning in other languages. And if that takes us doing what Amber said, songs and dances and running around our room and jumping jacks in this little tiny box that we have right here, then that's what we're going to do, because we want the kids, when they're little bitty kids, to continue to come every day. And that even if tech isn't working that day, that they keep trying to get on so that they can be with us. And so that they feel like they matter just as much as we matter to them, because we know how much we matter to them. We're so very important to them. And along with that, I am not giving up. I know you said one, but I'm doing two. Sorry. I'm not giving up comprehensible input, because I find that it's it's a challenge for teachers to get all of that stuff in the screen, right? How do they do that? And they get so bogged down with the content that they have to teach that they forget that the kids can't take in any of that content if they don't have help, access to that content. So, some teachers will talk in Spanish, and the kids, nobody's raising their hand, and I say, okay, we're going to remember that we have to make this content accessible. If we're learning how to read and you're just reading at them, they're not going to learn that. Let's remember to use images and TPR and realia and songs and dances and movements, because that's going to make them love coming to school and want to learn what you have to learn.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So Adriana and Amy, what questions do we have from the chat?
Yes, one question we had back in the first segment was from P2 Zoom, and they said, I love the idea of music to start. Can you share some of your favorite approved music?
I think coincidentally, all three of you are teachers of Spanish, so. Yeah.
I have a whole, I don't know, I don't have a list of it, like approved, like I guess my approved music, but I play music all the time. We do typically on Fridays, we do Baile Viernes, but you can, I mean, I don't have a list, I guess. Anybody have a list?
And I don't know if anyone in our audience does the March Madness with the music, the branches, the whatever they call those things for the, the music countdown to find their favorite song. I understand that whoever organizes that is doing an October version. So if you know, put that in the chat for us. How about
I mean, I have, like Amber, I have a list of music or songs and things that I use. I've also been, I've been enjoying a new app that my colleague recommended to me called Lyrics Training, where the students can go on and listen to music and they do that on their own. But the other thing that might be something to look into now, though it's going to be more US based music, is Vitamin String Quartet. So it's orchestra based music, but they're playing popular songs. So it just depends. If you want to bring music that's attached to the target culture, then that most likely wouldn't be a go-to. But
yeah, the lyrics.net, lyrics training. Right?
Yeah, it's an app.
Yeah,
Lyrics.com is fantastic, but it is PG-13, and so, I wouldn't, I wouldn't recommend it below high school. Yeah.
So I added a bunch of different singers, songwriters for elementary school in the chat. So Super Simple Spanish has songs on all different kinds of topics. Jose Luis Orozco, Basho and Friends. I didn't add, there's Rocalingua. Also, I'll write that in right now, Rocalingua, that they're just all different kinds of children's songwriters in Spanish that you can listen to. But I also will put Spanish guitar on so the kids can hear that. It's Hispanic Heritage Month, and not that we don't talk about Hispanic heritage throughout the year. This month, we're just focusing a little extra so we can read and talk about Tito Puente, Celia Cruz. So there are lots of different choices. Sometimes you can just do a search on salsa music or merengue, cumbia, whatever you like, and put that on so that the kids are expecting to hear different types of music when they come into the classroom or throughout, the movement breaks or the end of the day.
Perfect. Another question, ladies? Adriana or Amy, did we have something else that?
Yes, we do. I can go again. Someone was asking if Amber could share more about her experience of transitioning from remotely teaching only to hybrid.
Good question.
Challenges and tips. Yeah.
It is really challenging. So our first phase of students, and this, as board members, we kind of talked about this, I think, the other day, but it was really, we had EL students, special ed students, and our homeless population came back first as the first wave of students came back because they were the most needy. They weren't getting the supports that they needed digitally at home. So I ended up getting a bunch of EL students. It's pretty much, I don't really have too many special ed students. So I got a lot of EL students. In my first period, I have 32 students in my first period class. I have one student in-house. So I have 1 roomie and 31 Zoomies. And he's an awesome kid. And I don't do much different for him. He gets on Zoom just like the rest of the kids. He doesn't have to mess with uploading as much things because he can just turn them right into me on paper or in his Cuaderno. Now, when you get to my 3rd period class, I have 30 kids. I have 4 students that are my roomies with 26 that are Zoomies. And these 4 gentlemen are very, they're newcomers. They're EL newcomers, most of them. And so they didn't have technology in their countries or where they're from. So it has been, this is the class that I'm particularly experiencing challenges, because what I get done in my Spanish 3 first period, I don't quite complete my 3rd period Spanish 3 because those boys need a lot of attention. It's a lot of, I put the kids on an activity and then they're like, wait, Miss, what do I do? And I'm like, oh my gosh, so I'm like up and down and back and forth and up and down and back and forth. And I'm like, you push this button. And the technology is in English. And therefore they're not sure what button I'm doing or what it says, go to Quizlet.live. Well, they don't know what it's saying, so they're not sure what to do. And so it has been really, really challenging. And we're getting more and more students back. So like I said, we're starting to phase in more students. My strategy and my thought is when I become a classroom of more roomies than Zoomies, the way I teach will change. But because I only have 4 students in any one class, I have 1 student, 4 students, and 1 student. And then the afternoon I have no students. So I'm teaching digitally. I'm continuing to teach digitally with those boys. Like I said, they don't have to mess with technology as much just because they're in my classroom and they can hand papers to me directly. That seems to be easier for them. So when the time comes that I change and I have more than half, then I'll start teaching to the roomies, and the Zoomies will be watching me do it. So I'm not, it is basically you're doing 2 different jobs when you have this hybrid model, and it's very, very difficult. I haven't figured out the most magnificent way to manage it yet. I'm getting more comfortable with it. They're getting more comfortable with it. They're starting to understand the routine. They're starting to know where the buttons are and things like that. But it has been very challenging because it really, truly is 2 different jobs. So.
Thanks, Amber. Another question.
This one came from Dr. White. She wanted to know, what is a priority standard? I'd like to know too.
Okay, I can answer that question. I am in a dual language program, and so we teach the same curriculum in both languages, and so in English and in Spanish in our school. So our focus is on social and academic language development in English and in Spanish. So when I talk about priority standards, because there are so many different standards, for example, in literacy that the kids are supposed to learn by the end of the year, and we don't have the same amount of time to teach those in right now that we are online, our curriculum office went through and chose the priority standards that were covered throughout the year most often and shared those with our school and with our county. So that's what a priority standard is for us.
So that was nice. They did that curriculum adjustment for you and helped you identify the ones that you should focus on.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Another question?
Yes. The question is, for those who are physically teaching in the classroom via Zoom or on camera, are you wearing a mask? Is the language coming across, or is it harder for the students to understand? That question was from Wendy.
I guess I'm probably the only one that would have to wear the mask.
Mm-hmm.
So in my afternoon classes, I don't have students, so I do not wear a mask. During the day, when I do have my students that are there, I do have my mask. I have a clear one that I use. I usually put on really bright lipstick whenever I have to wear my mask, so they can really see my mouth moving through it. And So yeah, and then a lot of times it's interesting. The language is coming through. I find myself kind of shouting a little bit more. I find myself really enunciating. But yeah, so I try to use my clear mask when I can, really bright lipstick, talk a little louder with more enunciation. My kids on the other end, if they say, "What did you just say?" then I repeat myself. But I haven't found too many issues with my clear one. When I'm like using my regular mask, everything's muffled, and I find myself eating my mask, and then my lipstick's on the inside, and it's a whole mess. So clear one's the way to go.
Okay, another question.
This is from Roberta Wentworth. As a personal expectation, I had to adjust was the speed of the class. The pace of the virtual class is so much slower. Any suggestions on how to? I teach in ES. I'm not sure
Like elementary school?
Elementary school.
Could you repeat the question? Because it went in and out a little for me, please.
A personal expectation I had to adjust to was the speed of the class. The pace of the virtual class is so much slower. Any suggestions on how to speed it up?
Well, that's a really good question. Speeding it up, I don't know if we can speed it up, but getting a lot of bang for your buck, I think that you can do that, especially with a lot of those CI strategies. So having your images there, having them do the TPR, having them up and moving, sitting back down, responding in the chat, responding on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper, talking to a friend, I think you can get a lot more out of them than if you're just trying to cram a lot into a shorter period of time, because we all have a shorter period of time. Does that help, or do you guys have, Amber and Jodie, some suggestions?
I always have it as an expectation for my students that they have everything up and ready for when they actually enter class. So they should already have obviously have my Zoom on, but they should already have our learning platform up. They should already have their chat feature opened. They should those are just like little things that I actually have them make sure you have it out. All of my students, I sent home a Quaderno for them, like their notebook, the thing that we always write in, so that they always have that there too. Most of my upper level kids, they Zoom on one computer, because all of our students have Chromebooks, and they use another computer so that everything is open and ready to go. That does alleviate some problems in the classroom versus me waiting on kids. Okay, go find the audio. Okay, that kind of stuff. So that's an expectation. It's one of those routines, one of those standards that I set for my students at the very beginning of the school year.
Yeah, I would say the same thing as Amber. I send things to my students. If we're going to play a game, I send them the template, just that one PowerPoint slide, and say, have this ready. You're going to be screen sharing in your breakout groups, that kind of thing. But that's going to be a little bit different, obviously, for elementary school.
Mm-hmm. Good. I think we might have time for one more question.
Okay. This, I think, was addressed a little bit. It's asking about, if you teach a language that's not Spanish, what are some of your favorite resources? There was some discussion of that in the chat.
Okay.
But I did have a question myself. I was wondering if there's anything that you started doing during the remote or virtual teaching that you will definitely continue to do even when students fully return face-to-face.
Oh, that's a good one.
The way I grade, I think, will be something that I will continue. I'm much more holistic. I've definitely been able to tell that I'm not nearly as nitpicky as I was. I never really considered myself nitpicky, but then I was like, I would be like, I'd mark all kinds of things on their papers. And so I'm really trying to focus holistic grading. Some things I grade for correction, some things I grade for completion, some things I don't grade at all, because I'm like, I don't need to grade absolutely everything that they do. Like I did a Jamboard the other day for the first time. I didn't grade it. it was just an activity that we did. I'm trying to be less, but being much more thorough with my feedback, making it meaningful and relevant, and then grading holistically. And I think that has actually, the students have really appreciated that much more with the amount of like just substantial feedback that I'm giving them. And so some of the things I really like that I'm doing as I'm grading, and then others that I'm like, why am I doing this? So I think some of the pieces of how I grade, I do prefer typing versus handwriting. So when I give feedback, I am typing it on their Google Doc or whatever it is that they're sharing, or in Schoology, I put in a comment with feedback, and that I like that, and they read it. So, you know, that's some things that I think I will continue to do.
And so very quickly, in like one sentence, Serena and then Jodie, if you have something.
I
No?
can go if Serena's thinking. Okay, so I would say that how students turn things in, I like that they're turning things in digitally versus on paper, certain things. And also I enjoy, because of that, because they've been turning everything in digitally, I like the different ways I can give them feedback. So I can type on their document, I can record my voice. I can record a video, though I haven't done that as far as feedback is concerned for individual students, but I can record my voice and say, you know, I really appreciate how you've done this and this, or you know, for pronunciation's sake, this word is this and that word is that, you know, so I will definitely continue doing that.
Great. And Serena, I don't know.
You can say Serena or Serena, no
Serena,
importa.
sorry.
Da igual, es lo mismo y me gustan los dos. You want one sentence? I can't do it in one sentence, but I'll try in two. I will continue to use so many of the amazing technology tools that I've learned in the last few months, like Jamboard and Nearpod and Pear Deck, and many of the websites like Lluvia de Palabras with my students, because those can transfer very easily into the classroom. And in fact, they can be even more creative and interactive, because they'll be able to come to the board now and actually touch them and move them in the classroom. So I will continue to use those things, period.
Wow. I want to thank all three of you so much. You know, you've shared so much information, and we've learned so much from you, and your honesty in terms of the fact that, you know, very often, you know, we hold our toys up on a pedestal, and you all said over and over that, you know, you're like all the other teachers, and there are good days and bad days. And so thank you for sharing that. And I think we'll turn it back over now to...
I'd like to thank you, Debbie, for hosting this, and the panelists were amazing. You were very engaging, I have to say. You had us the chat going constantly. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences.
Welcome. Thank you for having us.
And I think now we will turn it back over to Emily.
Yes. Thank you. I echo the sentiments of Adriana and our chat as